So here's the current implementation of our input component. This component is responsible for rendering the label and an input field. We're going to give the responsibility of displaying an error message related to this input field to this input component. So here, right after this input field, I'm going to add a div with two classes, alert and alert-danger. Again, these are both Bootstrap classes. In this div, we want to render an error message. So on the top, we should get the error prop and render it here. Error. Now we want to render this div only if error has a value. So with this selected, let's put this in an expression. Here we prefix this with error and. So you learned this technique earlier when we talked about conditional rendering in the component section. So if error is truthy, then this expression will be returned. Otherwise, if it's falsy, this is going to be ignored. Okay. Now back to our login form. We need to pass this error prop to our input components. So right here, let's add error. We should set this to this.state.errors.username. Actually, it's better to use object destructuring here. So just like we pick the account property of the state object, we should also pick the errors property or the errors object and then use that here. One more time, I'm going to copy this line and apply it to our password field. But we should change username to password. Okay, save. Back in the browser. So initially, both fields are empty. Let's submit the form. We get two errors here. Let's fill out the username field. Resubmit the form. That error is gone. Beautiful. One more time, let's fill out the password field. Submit. Oops, we got an error. Cannot read property username of null. And this happened on line 52. We can click here, and this takes us straight to the code. So here, we try to access the username property of null. The reason this happened was because in our handle submit method, this is where we call our validate method. If we don't have any errors, this errors is going to be null. So we set the state, and that's why we got this runtime error. To fix this issue, we need to change line 27 to something like this. So we're going to set the errors property to this errors object or an empty object. So if this is truthy, we'll use this object. Otherwise, instead of null, we'll use an empty object. So in other words, our errors property should always be set to an object. It should never be null. Okay. Also, we no longer need this console.log. Let's delete that. Let's test the application one more time. So one more time, I'm going to submit the form. Good. Fill out both fields. Submit. We no longer get that error. Beautiful. Next, I'm going to show you how to validate a field as its value changes.